There's a question that's asked by all the commentaries. Abraham is told by God 3 days before the angels meet up with him, he's going to have a son, not through Hagar, second wife, but through Sarah, his first wife, who's 90 years, going to be 90 years soon. And she no longer has a period. She's going to conceive a child for him. And he's told that 3 days before the circumcision. And 3 days later, after the circumcision, Sarah hears when the angels come to visit Abraham and visit the sick, they tell him to tell Sarah that next year at this time she's going to have her own little baby boy. And Sarah starts cracking up. A miracle can happen if you have a vessel. If you have no vessel, the miracle can't happen. She no longer had a period, meaning she no longer ovulated. If you have no ova, you can't have a baby. And at that very moment, she began ovulating. And God criticizes her for not believing initially, till she began getting a period and ovulating. And the question is, why did Abraham not tell her 3 days earlier? This is incredible news. They had been married 80 years, 75 years. And they hadn't had a child. And now, she's going to have a child at age 90. The first thing you do is you tell your wife the great news. God has told me this. That has to happen. When the angel comes along and says it, it should be old hat for Sarah. She should already know this. Shouldn't have any questions. Why is it that Sarah doesn't know? Because Abraham didn't tell her. Why doesn't Abraham tell her? How do you not tell your spouse the wonderful news of this blessing? What's the answer, my friends? What's your answer? I'll tell you mine. Abraham was told this by God in a prophecy. Prophecy is a privilege, not a right. If you have prophecy, you got to keep your mouth shut. If you know that the next person is going to die tomorrow, you're not allowed to tell them that. What you can do is suggest to that person to give some charity, to say an extra prayer, maybe not go on a ski trip or something and kill them. But you can't tell the person, I saw that you were going to die tomorrow. Because when you receive prophecy and you see how things are above, the information is meant only for you, not for anybody else. Unless God says the magic word, lemor. As it says, and God said to Moses, lemor, so saying, to say. Moses was then given the right to communicate what God said to him. And he said it verbatim. But if you look in the Torah portion of Lech Lecha, you will see that when God spoke to Abraham, it says that God appeared to Abraham. And God said to him. When it says to him, it implies, and not to anyone else, not to her even. And therefore Abraham was not allowed to reveal this to Sarah. She had to learn this on her own and react with her faith. Instead, she reacted with skepticism. And that's why she was criticized. The same thing happens in our Torah portion. When Rivka finally conceives after 20 years of marriage, she has children in her womb, and they give her the hardest time. They seem to be fighting with each other. Now, what's going on? The pain is excruciating. So she goes to the prophet. The prophet's name was Shem, son of Noah, still around, still alive. And God gives her a message. It says, Vayomer Hashem lo. And God said to her, but it says to her, it means to you and to nobody else. You should know that there are two great kingdoms in your womb, and they will fight to the death until the end of days. But v'rav ya'avod sa'ir, the elder will serve the younger. The elder has to serve the younger, says God. But wait, Isaac is blessing the elder. He's going to be superior to the younger. She can't let that happen. That's why God gave her the prophecy, to make sure that that doesn't happen, that Esau doesn't become the chief honcho, that Jacob is on top. Well, that's okay. But why doesn't she tell Jacob that she had this prophecy? And why is Jacob so afraid? And at the very end, why does God make it that Jacob has got to lie? All right, it's a white lie. It's not a total lie. He said things in a way that can be misinterpreted. But why does Jacob say, white lie? No, something that can be misinterpreted. Why does Jacob have to do that in order to get those blessings? Why does it have to be so excruciatingly painful? And there are two answers, but I'll give you answer number one. Answer number one is that there are good people in this world, but they're not very good people or great people. You know why? Because that's their nature. They can't do anything different than to be goody-goody. That does not show greatness of character. Greatness of character is to do what's right despite your nature. Jacob was an honest, straightforward person because of his nature. He had to go against his nature in order to do what's right. What is right is what God told Rebekah. V'rav yavod sa'ir, the elder must serve the younger, because the elder is too much of an egoist to change his life through a blessing. And what you're going to have is, you're going to have a sophisticated Bilam. You're going to have someone that is totally self-absorbed into himself, believing that he, not the message is important, but the messenger. Totally wrapped up in himself. Totally believing that he deserved everything and nobody else did. And so Jacob had to do that, to get it away from this idiot, this person who was evil. But in order to do that, to get this blessing, he had to go against his very nature. I want to describe to you